everybody, to another episode of the Men's Sexual Mastery Podcast, where we are awakening, empowering, and aligning every brother into his sexual potential, giving him the tools to update his sexual software, as we say, as men who received virtually no sex ed outside of porn. We're here to be passing on the ancient lineages of the Taoist and Tantric traditions and these sexual sciences and technologies, if you will, for rewiring our brains and our nervous systems into becoming multi-orgasmic men who are fire keepers and who are leaders in the bedroom and in life, men who are connected to integrity with their sexual energy and hold it as sacred in service to all generations. So I'm excited to be here today with my fellow co-host and co-founder. Welcome, Ian Hawks.
Hey, Ben. Hey, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Today, we're going to be diving into another short form podcast talking about confidence and confidence in the bedroom, confidence sexually, and just confidence in general. And right before we hit the record button, Hawks, you were mentioning the idea of building confidence in the mental game versus the energetic game. Would you speak a little bit to what you mean by that?
Sure. To me, it's this sense that confidence doesn't actually come from the mind. It comes from the body. I think we understand that confidence is something that we feel when we're with someone who's exuding that confidence. It's felt. It doesn't need to be spoken. And so what does that say about confidence? I mean, it says it's energetic. It's not mental. And when it comes to sex and relationships and sexuality, there's a lot of the mental aspect of building confidence. If we think about dating, dating coaches, and to me, that's missing the mark. There's a place for that. It's a skill set to be able to speak and to start conversation and to navigate that in a way that's really engaging and provokes curiosity. But if on the backside of that, a man is actually insecure in his ability to really show up intimately, to show up sexually, then you could have all the right things to say. But my sense is a woman is still going to feel, this guy's not actually that confident. So how do we build that confidence that the world around us feels? And to me, it comes from the body. It comes from our energy. So we could talk about how do we do that? How do we build that type of confidence up? Yeah.
Yeah, let's go into that. Let's take her away. How do we build up that confidence from within that's felt and not just up in the mind? That's not just another magic trick, this like monkey show, which I also see in a lot of the pickup artist scene as well. Like it's all good until you stop performing, until things get quiet and then suddenly you're terrified, and can you actually be regulated and breathing, and can you actually use the silence, and can you use your gaze, and can you use that depth of intensity and penetration to let down the show and actually be yourself truly and let her
Mm-hmm.
receive that fullness and let her be received fully. So yeah, that's what comes up for me. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts, Hawks, on how do we start to build that type of energy within us.
Mm-hmm. You know, what I just thought of as you were sharing that, Ben, is this in the gaze, in that silent space. It's our own ability to let ourself be seen that creates that safety, that creates that sense of, oh, this guy's confidence. Like he's letting me actually really see into him. And so then if I reverse engineer from that, like what prevents us from allowing others to see us fully? It's shame, it's guilt. It's a sense of like, I don't want someone to actually know what's really going on in here because I don't feel good about it. And there can be a lot of mental games to create this facade, this sleight of hand that can distract people or keep someone busy and engaged or entertained in the short term. But if it's always just noise and not without the ability to settle into that silence and just be like, yeah, and this is who I really am behind the words, behind the noise, then there's going to be an element that's really missing. And so, where we always begin within MSM and our trainings, and for you and myself, I know in our personal life, it's about coherence. It's about doing what we say we're going to do, being a man of integrity, having self-trust and self-leadership. So I'd love to actually turn it over to you to speak to that.
Yeah, well, I was just feeling how our ability to sit in the silence, to be seen, and to allow that full vulnerability is directly tied, in my experience, to my ability to sit with myself in the silence. And that's the inside out game. There's just energy don't lie. And
Hmm.
like our partner's going to feel that. Our friends are going to feel that. Our business partners are going to feel that. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you are living with yourself. And if you're saying you're going to do something and you don't do it, if you're saying you are someone, or these are my values, or this is what I believe, and you're actually acting in dissonance with who you say you're being, that's causing cognitive dissonance. And when you look into the eyes of people around you, they're going to feel that cognitive dissonance within you. So, getting to the root of our own bullshit as men and healing that. And this is where brotherhood is so important. And that's why in our, community that we met within the men's workspace and in men's sexual mastery, like it is vital for us not to be in isolation. It is vital for us to be held by other brothers and witnessed and held accountable. And, in our training, we talk about it all the time, having daily accountability, making these commitments. Like every day, I'm going to get up and do my meditation. I'm going to do my solo cultivation. And when we don't do that thing, we're taking ownership of it. We're recommitting. We're getting back in line. As we say, we have to stumble like babies as we learn to walk. It's a muscle we're building. And as men, most of us were never taught the importance of being in integrity with ourselves on the deepest level, because that's ultimately that's when we can look at someone in the eye and really be seen and really be felt and really feel confident, because we're able to feel like I do what I say I do. I am who I say I am. And that's kind of a little bit of the what comes up for me, at least, in like how to build coherence and how to build this natural confidence. And I would just say one last thing is like in relationship, my one of my teachers early on told me one of the biggest blocks to intimacy in your relationship is you saying you're going to take out the trash and then never doing it. Like you may think that it's inconsequential. You may think those little things don't matter, but they actually are some of the most important. And the feminine picks up on that. She knows, she feels it, even if it's not
Hmm.
consciously. So it's vital for us to maintain our commitments and to know the tools and the technology, if you will, the protocol for when we fall out of commitment, so that we can just get right back into coherence with ourselves. We can take ownership, recommit, and just keep realigning, realigning, realigning. And yeah, to me, that's how we build coherence. That's how we build this foundation, of self trust, of self confidence.
Hmm. Yeah, something I heard you speak to there is the importance of the physical practice itself. Even if the physical practice is just sitting in meditation. Anyone who's sat of Vipassana before or engaged in really long-term seated meditations, you understand there is a very physical, muscular aspect to that to actually sit upright for long periods of time. But aside from that, even just a 5-minute seated meditation, there's a physical quality to it where we're actually doing the practice. And you could read books on meditation your whole life, but until you actually engage the practice physically, day after day after day, you're not going to reach that level of felt sense, that level of energetic uh, capacity to carry that inner knowing, to carry that in your body and in your energy of, yes, I can be comfortable with myself. I can be comfortable in silence. I am comfortable with my inner landscape, and I'm capable of being fully present with whatever is. And I mean, we could apply this to any number of things. Like you could read every book on martial arts, but if you never stepped into a training ground, if you never stepped into the dojo or the gym and really trained that practice physically, then how confident are you really going to be if a fight breaks out? Doesn't matter how many books you've read or how many movies
Yeah.
you've watched trying to mentalize this practice. It's just it doesn't compute to real life.
Hmm.
And sex and sexuality is the same way. It's a physical practice that is learned through doing. It's a learned skill.
Hmm.
And our capacity, I want to bring it around to the juicy stuff for our listeners. Like, let's talk about how to exude confidence when you're relating with someone who you haven't slept with yet, but you feel that there's a charge between you two, and it's someone that you're interested in engaging in an intimate relationship with. How do you go into that experience carrying the energy of like, hey, I'm not in a rush for this to get physical, but I also am trusting that if and when it does, I'm going to rock your world, because she's going
Hmm.
to feel that, whether it's actually, I'm going to prolong, I'm, I'm kind of dreading the moment that we actually get into bed together because I'm confident in my ability to get you there. But once we actually get there, that's where my confidence ends. And that's where my insecurities and my patterns of fear really start to come in.
Hmm.
So, and that's a huge element. Like, I actually think for us as men, this is one of the biggest aspects of the general confidence that we exude in the world is our own felt sense of sexual capacity.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter if you're interviewing for a job or you're hanging out with your bros or you're talking to a woman that you deeply desire to have an intimate connection with. All three of those situations you might be in, that inner sense of my sexual capacity is going to be, we're carrying it, whether it's relevant to the situation we're in or not. It's a part of our energetic, like, field. It's a part of our energetic signature, I'll call it.
Hmm.
And, and so let's talk about that. If
Hmm.
someone has a pattern of, erectile challenges or premature ejaculation, and premature ejaculation could just mean that you're not able to last as long as you want every time. It doesn't need to be a dramatically fast ejaculation that's completely out of your control. To me, premature ejaculation just means like you're ejaculating earlier than you would ideally like to, some of
Hmm.
the time or most of the time. And if that's our experience that we've been living with our whole life, that's going to be carried into our energetic signature in whatever situation we step into, especially if it's with a potential intimate partner or someone we've been intimate with already. And then it's even amplified greater because you're like, oh, they've already seen, they already
Hmm.
know this part of me.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I think having the skill set like you talked about, going back to like this is like we say all the time, this work is internal martial arts training. It's retraining new neural pathways of pleasure, of sexual energy, of chi, of life force, as it's taught within the Tao and traditional Chinese medicine and all these other places, to move it throughout your body to separate orgasm and ejaculation so that yeah, you can hold that capacity that you can actually be coming from an overflowing cup into the bedroom rather than an empty cup that's needing to seek and extract sexual energy and pleasure from the feminine. And this is the whole inside out game that we talk about. And just to double click on that, like as you spoke to it, like doing the reps, doing the work over time, just like hitting the gym. It doesn't matter how many books you've read. We have guys that come into this training who've read every book, and they haven't experienced the actual firsthand experience of a non-ejaculatory orgasm until they put in the reps. There's no getting around it. Energy don't lie. And what you're speaking to and what I take from this is, there's two states. There's vital and there's deficient. in terms of qi and a lot of these teachings in traditional Chinese medicine. And when we're deficient, we're going to be in a performative state. We're going to be constantly, using whatever props we can and attempting to cover up what's underneath. But when we're actually coming from a place of coherence with ourselves and honesty with ourselves, and then we're building on top of that foundation of self trust, of self confidence, of coherence, we're then filling up the cup. We've patched all the leaks, if you will, and we're filling that cup up with sexual energy as men are practicing semen intention and not just allowing it to naturally raise, but also bringing in all these other tools to channel it all over the body and not just shove it down, which is kind of the mainstream semen retention. As that builds, it compounds, and they teach that sexual energy binds and amplifies whatever's present. So if there's dissonance, it's going to turn up. If you're not being true to yourself, it's going to make that very apparent. If you're anxious and you're depressed or whatever else, it'll just keep turning that up and help you shed it. And as you have this foundation of coherence, of confidence, of trust in yourself, it's going to be amplifying that too. So just bring it back to what you were saying. Yeah, like everyone's going to feel that around us. And the more you practice the semen intention and the more you practice building this energy, it compounds on itself and it becomes this kind of flywheel effect where your confidence is just building within its own field, if you
Hmm.
will. And yeah, and people feel that. It's like what's that saying? We've mentioned it before, but like the most powerful person in the room is the most regulated, or I would say the most grounded, or I would say the most vital and healthy and just fully coherent. And that's the man who can walk into a space or woman and breathe it in and make eye contact with anyone in that room and they feel that solidity, and
Hmm.
that's the grounds we're talking about. And then especially, coming into the bedroom itself, and you spoke to that, like building our ability to hold more sexual energy without ejaculating it, or our ability to, if we're experiencing erectile dysfunction, to relax our pelvic floor more and notice when we get up in our head, especially performance induced erectile dysfunction, and repattern that through daily practices. Like it is connected to your daily morning routine. Like
Hmm.
the time you're putting in the dojo, in the gym, let's say, of the inner work is going to show up on game day. And that's ultimately what we're talking about here. So,
Yeah. It's common in sports, like practice as you play. And if our sexual practice is our solo sexual experience, masturbation, again, as it's typically called, we don't refer to it as masturbation in our program because it's different. It looks different. It carries a different energy than what our culture like associates with the word masturbation. But if we're being honest, that's how we practiced sex as humans. And we almost just about everyone does it. Men and women across the board, we're all practicing a sexual experience with ourselves, or we were at some point in our life. And then maybe we decided to remove that altogether. That's kind of like the nofap or the hardcore semen retention community, which again is like, well, is that practicing how you play? Or is that just not practicing at all,
mm-hmm.
expecting to someday hop on the court and play a game and somehow perform at a high caliber when you haven't even been practicing or training at all? And so I think like whether you're single or in a relationship, one of the best ways that we can really cultivate sexual confidence is to practice sex with ourself
Mm-hmm.
as we would be wanting to show up with sex with a partner. Make love to yourself so that when you show up with your
Yeah.
partner, you're truly making love with them. Be present with yourself so that when you show up with a partner, you're truly being present with them. Get comfortable not ejaculating when you're by yourself so that you can get comfortable not ejaculating as long as you want when you're with a partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and just to give guys a little context or framework for that practice, just a bare bones, because there's so much to that, as you said. This is what we do in our training program with our weekly protocols that we invite guys into, is we're habit stacking, and we're bringing in our own distillation of these most potent practices that we've gathered from all these different lineages to circulate and move the sexual energy. But, specifically, I'd say to get it, practice getting out of your head and into your body in the sexual experience. You can start with practicing deep breathing while stimulating ourselves, relaxing the body, making audible sighs, and just staying in deep circular breathing, just like you would in a breathwork journey, while stimulating yourself, releasing fantasy as soon as possible, and then just staying present, like we're talking about, staying out of the mind and just staying in the pleasure of the body. And imagine that energy coming up and down your spine as you're breathing deep belly breaths, making those sighs. And then we recommend not going over a 7 or an 8 out of 10 on that pleasure scale. If you start getting into the 8 or 9, or 99%, if you're edging a little too close to your edge and you don't have the tools of sexual transmutation, which again is way more than we could teach right here, then you will get blue balls. Like, blue balls are a side effect of you not moving the energy. It's stagnant energy that's being built up like a pressure cooker. So yeah, that's just a little bit more on the solo cultivation or self pleasure practice, as we say, just for anyone listening to get started in that. So yeah, Hawks, do you have anything else? I know we're about to wrap up here. Is there anything else you want to sprinkle in here on sexual confidence?
Well, just to summarize a couple of the things we touched on, coherence, if we take it outside of the bedroom, again, confidence in general. It's like, do you trust yourself? Are you walking and moving through the world in a way that's breeding trust and confidence in yourself?
Mm-hmm.
If you are, then great. The world around you is going to feel that. You don't have to say or prove anything. It's your energetic signature that you're carrying. And then when it comes to sex in general, it's like, how are you practicing?
Mm-hmm.
Are you practicing as you're going to play? Do you have a practice that's building up your capacity to show up for a lover when that opportunity arises? If not, then that's an opportunity. It's a big opportunity to start creating some shifts in your life and allowing yourself to increase your capacity so that eventually you've had enough sexual experiences with a partner where you're like, oh yeah, I've got this. And then
Mm-hmm.
you get to carry that energy of like, I've got this, like I've got you.
Mm-hmm.
And that the world around you is going to feel that too. And like you're saying, there's it can sound, it can be simple. We can talk about it mentally in this short period of time, but there's a lot to it. And that's why we've developed the program within Men's Sexual Mastery that we have. That's why there are ancient lineages that have been studying and teaching these things for thousands of years. It actually can take a lot of energy and support to really properly and permanently rewire some of these patterns within ourselves. So if you're looking for some extra support in the implementation,
Mm-hmm.
come check us out, or explore some other avenues to seek support in this way, because it can be really big work, and
Mm-hmm.
sex and sexuality in general can bring up a lot for us. There's a lot of deep work involved in repatterning these parts of ourselves, and so we're here to support in that. And if anything that we shared today is enough for you to start and put some new practices into your own life, every little bit helps. And
Yeah. Yeah. One last thing I want to add in here, just is, in case it wasn't clearly mentioned, is the intention with this solo cultivation practice, the self pleasuring, is to rewire these neural pathways to move from a sympathetic nervous system response, a clenching with sexual energy, into parasympathetic, which requires us releasing fantasy, releasing being in the mind, staying in the breath the entire time. And as soon as we stop breathing, as soon as we start clenching and tightening up and getting in our head and leaving our bodies, ejaculating, mentally from the experience, that's when we stumble. And that's what we're learning to work on, so that we can bring more of that into partnership. And the more we can relax into some of these states when you're getting at these higher levels of pleasure, that's actually what allows our capacity to expand and can open up these experiences of separating orgasm and ejaculation. And the more that we do that, on our own, as we've mentioned, the more you can bring that to the bedroom, and the longer, you can last by yourself, and the more you can expand those edges and expand that capacity, the more you're going to feel that going into the bedroom, and that it carries right over. So yeah, just ditto to all that. One last thing I'll say too is, like, if you're new to this work and you haven't practiced not ejaculating for a week or 2 or 3 weeks, that's always the first invitation we bring to every brother. Just do that. Try out 2, 3 weeks. I'd say definitely by week 3, you're going to be noticing the effects of these things. Just see it for yourself, and just know that there's a whole brotherhood here waiting for you if you're interested in going deeper than just semen retention and the basics of this, and into deeper energetic martial arts, as we say. We got you. I hope all this has been helpful to anyone tuning in today. And with that, we'll sign off. Sending you all so much love. Wishing you a great week.
All right. Catch you on the next one. Later.